Beloved, it's been 50 days since I installed the small wood burning stove into my 14 by 16 canvas wall tent. I burn it every single day. I have every single day, and I want to share with you my experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly. This little stove has been going nonstop for, as I said, 50 days. We come in every morning and we've burned quite a bit of wood through it. It definitely heats the tent up quite quickly. I would say 10 to 15 minutes, we're pretty comfortable. Even when we get down into the 18 degrees, 15 degrees is the coldest that we've had. And to be honest with you, we wouldn't be able to do this without it. It actually is a nice little stove when it comes to that as far as the sizing. The problem comes into, well, the Chinese quality. The first thing we noticed is there is a lot of warping in here where the spot welds were done. Now, this isn't a problem. These always do that. Now, will it last? I don't get the feeling that it would last. You know, maybe a year or so. Something's going to give, but that is something I noticed right away, especially up here. The top is no longer flat because of the excessive weight of the chimney. And when it gets cold, these racks don't seem to want to fold up too much anymore because the whole thing's kind of changed shape. Now, wretched East Coast man is going to tell me that I overfired the thing, which sometimes, I mean, I try not to, but it's hard. You know, you can't watch the thing all the time. And another deal that happened is that I'm not able to get this off once the stove cools down because it heats and expands. Now, is it important to get this thing off? I don't think so. If it wasn't there, I don't think I would need it. Another thing that happened probably in the first 2 weeks is we got a crack on the side display glass right there. Also, the glass doesn't clean itself very well like some of the bigger stoves. Not a big deal, but just kind of a data point. As far as the overall function of the stove, I really don't have any complaints. It's got a nice small grate under there that keeps the ash somewhat clean, so it does draft very well. It's very deep. It's easy to get long pieces of wood in, and I just really don't have any complaints other than the more it's stretched and the more it's kind of opened up, that it is hard to really dampen it down. There's so many air gaps that you can't really get it to hold for very long, but it's not a huge stove. But I don't really have any complaints with the door and the hardware. Everything has seemed to hold up just fine. Now comes the bad, and there's a lot of bad when it comes to the accessories. 50 days old, this was the fireproof mat you can see here. Now, you don't want to have this on a tarp like we have here with coals and hot things coming out. No matter how careful you are, you need something fireproof. And so this was marketed a foil back mat, but as you can see, all of the fuzzy stick to your feet. It's coming apart. That's not going to last at all. It would have been much better to have like a transmission pan, which is probably what I'll replace it with. The next thing where China really rears its ugly head, I guess the accessories have completely fallen apart. The online damper. There should be a damper in there. It's a little flapper that you're able to turn that really helps to regulate the stove. Well, that failed about 2 weeks ago and fell off and blocked the stove, and we had to take the chimney pipe out, and that that didn't even last. It didn't even last the 50 days. Here's the damper piece that fell apart. I told you that fell back inside the stove. So it's just a spring and just a small stainless steel cap. But you would turn this, and it would really, it was a big help in being able to moderate the temperature of the stove. But this just all fell apart. And yeah, can it be fixed? Yes, I guess. I don't know that I can weld stainless steel, but I'll probably just not use it, just throw it away. I put on my stove jack, this is the Winnerwell. I went and did everything super careful. I did the double wall pipe, and when you have, see, this is single wall. Single wall is handy because you get a lot of heat off of it. Double wall is handy when you need to not insulate heat, like where you're going to be touching or coming through a jack like this. This is the Winnerwell jack, and this thing started to fall apart and burn up in about 4 or 5 days. Absolute trash, and now it drops little pieces of rubber. So not suggested, a really terrible accessory. Another thing I've had a lot of problems with has been the spark arrestor on the chimney. It's too tight and it clogs up, and then the whole tent fills with smoke, and it won't draft properly, and you got to pull the chimney out and clean all that off. So it's not wet wood, it's too tight. It's just, there's too much restriction on it. The water tank accessory is something, we used it quite a bit at first, but I got tired of constantly worrying about it running dry. if these run dry, then of course, they'll burn up the seals on here. But now with the warpage on it, it doesn't sit quite as nice as it used to. Not a super big deal. It does work, but this conflict here, when you're trying to put water in it, just got to the point where we just took it off and just put a traditional kettle on the top. Another thing that didn't really pan out all that well is I bought leg extensions. I thought it might be a little bit easier and get everybody warmed up quicker to have this raised up. And they worked fine, but I found that having the center of gravity so much higher and pushing the wood in and stuff, everything felt kind of janky and it just felt a lot more fragile. So I ended up taking that stuff off. I don't know why I buy all this stuff without trying it out or thinking about it more. I guess that's what happens when you have more money than brains. So the obvious question is, would I buy it again? I don't believe I'm using this stove the way it was probably designed, daily use. It is certainly not skookum enough for daily use. Now, if you're an elk hunter or having this for camping trips, you're going to roll it out once in a while, maybe in an emergency, this would last you a lifetime. But when it comes to daily burning and just those heating cycles, they just tear stuff up, and it's just not quite. I don't expect that it would go 6 months, to be honest. I'm expecting it to fail at any time. I don't know what's going to break, but something will break, and when that happens, I will not buy another one. I will buy a traditional small cast iron stove, like a little Yule or something Swedish, something that is small that we can put in that has that 100% duty cycle that's rated for that daily burn, because we're every morning, it's running for 2-3 hours, and we've put quite a bit of wood through it. So if you're a temporary dude, just going to use it occasionally, I think it's just fine. Beware of the dodgy accessories. They're pretty trash. But the overall stove, I would say, is fine for intermittent use, not full-time. May God bless you and your families. Please keep us in your prayers, and we'll see you all on the next video.